And we're back to Unsportsmanlike Conduct. I am Paul Gerke. That is Mike McBanaman. 2 hours of fun again today. Fridays, 11 to 1 p.m. We are your source for sports, I guess.
That's a very clever slogan.
Now, all radio shows or TV shows have like a sweet slogan.
Yeah.
I still can't come up with one for this show. Somebody said something on our Facebook a couple weeks ago, like, you throw the flag, we'll take the penalty.
I like that.
I don't like that. I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense, really. We were just talking about the Lions from last week. The Detroit Lions, of course, playing Philadelphia this week, looking to start 0-2. I guess if the Lions win any of their first 4 games, I'll be happy because it doesn't look like they're going to do that. It looks like they're going to get beat by Philadelphia. They're probably going to lose at Lambeau in Green Bay, and they're going to lose against Minnesota in Minnesota. We might not even get to watch this football game this weekend. The Lions got a day extension on the sellout. They need to sell the game out so you can watch it on local TV. There were 2,000 and change as far as tickets available the last time I heard. There's less than 2,000 now. The deadline is an hour from now, 1 p.m. on Friday. They expect to sell out because they don't generally grant those deadline extensions if they don't expect the games to sell out. Why isn't the Lions home opener selling out?
I thought there would be more excitement for.
Is it because Stafford's hurt? Is it because you don't get to see that franchise quarterback?
Maybe people like just watching it on TV more.
Well, they're not going to watch it on TV if they don't sell the stadium out.
I know, but they're not
Catch-22.
thinking that. They want other people to buy the tickets. I don't know why. I really wouldn't care to. I'd rather watch it on TV personally. But
we were listening to 97.1 on the way in to the show today, and they were discussing how there's such a hullabaloo for the Detroit Tigers opening day.
I keep looking at Javid Best's numbers from last week, and that's really sad. I didn't realize it was that bad.
Yeah, like 1.6 yards a carry or something.
See, I think that's what you have to think about with the Lions is that you obviously. I don't care about wins or losses this season. It's like, what are these players like Brandon Pettigrew and Javid Best? 2 touchdowns is good, but what are they going to do when they get to the regular season? What do we have to look forward to?
I don't think
that
those numbers are really Javid's best fault. I think that.
I know, but that worries me too.
For the entire second half, they were backed up in their own goal line, essentially, because Detroit's defense kept getting stops. That was really the problem last week. And that's a good problem to have, I guess. But they kept getting stops and getting the ball at like their own 5.
When he did run it, like he looked he was hesitant. Like he wasn't hesitant.
It was his first NFL game.
Exactly. But the reason he was hesitant wasn't, I don't think, his fault. It was the line's fault. The offensive line's fault.
I think it's the play calling because you're inside your own 5-yard line and you're pretty much just running off tackle shit.
I'd like to see how many. I don't think that was. I think a lot of the plays weren't necessarily backed up in your goal line, but
everything in the second half was. He didn't get a touch in the second half where he had any room to run. But we were just talking a second ago, or I was listening to 97.1 on the way in. Mike and I were discussing this before the show. Everyone gets all excited for the Tigers opening day, but nobody gets excited for the Lions opening day. Why is that? Why don't you see why isn't it a sort of national holiday? I mean, I know guys that take the day off of work when the Tigers open their season up in the springtime. Why isn't it the same way for the Detroit Lions? You could argue that this is a bigger football town than it is a baseball town.
I think there's a few reasons. One, because the Lions are always bad and the Tigers are sometimes good. I think another part of it is that I feel more nervous for the first game of the Lions because there's only 16 games. And when you have a baseball season, if the Tigers lose opening day, they got 161 more to play. And you don't have that with the Lions. You have one loss, and that could shape the rest of your season, especially a big loss like they had last week, such a heartbreaker. I don't think that can happen on opening day for baseball. I think that you look like the times that when you start to get nervous with baseball is like right now, if you're like a Yankees fan or like a Red Sox fan when there's playoff talk. But every game in the NFL matters, and I think that's a big part of it.
So I don't understand. Why does that make opening day less special?
Because you're more nervous. Like the reason the discussion was, why is there more excitement? Why do people get more excited for the Tigers? Mm. And the reason they get more excited is because they can celebrate and have fun. I don't think you necessarily can do that with the Lions. You're not really.
So you're saying nervousness affects ticket sales?
The discussion wasn't necessarily ticket sales. It was the discussion that they were having was tailgating and people taking the day off work to go celebrate at bars and stuff like that. Ticket sales is a completely different issue, but if we're just talking about the celebration, which was the talk of 97-1, why do people get more excited about opening day for the Tigers than they do the Lions? And I think that's a big part of it.
I guess I don't understand your point. So you're saying that because the game means less in baseball, you can get more excited.
Yeah,
I
you
would
can
say,
celebrate
as a
more.
sports fan, I get more excited because the game means
Well,
more.
that's part of the discussion too. Is that that's not necessarily um, as a sports fan, maybe you can get more pumped up about. And obviously, you were pretty pumped up because you were running around like an idiot whenever the Lions did anything.
Mm-hmm.
But more of the casual fans, we know a lot of casual fans. Dave Poplinski, for example, he can get more pumped up about baseball. It's America's pastime.
Mm-hmm.
It's a simpler game. It's more of a relaxed feel to it. You can just go to the bar and you can have it in the background. And the Lions game, you have to pay attention. There's constant excitement. But baseball is a different kind of game. You can just celebrate, get ready for the summer coming. There's this, and the seasons are changing. All of you had to watch was basketball and what other hockey from that point on, and then baseball starts up. Football, it's signifying the end of summer. And for maybe like a fantasy football owner, you get excited about the first few games, but I think if you're just a casual Lions fan, you're always a little bit nervous. What's going to happen? There's a lot more to talk about. What's going to go wrong for the Lions than with the Tigers.
I think really the point comes down to the enjoyability of watching a game. I've heard lots of bad things. I've actually never been to a pro football game, but I've heard that it's just not enjoyable to sit and watch. I mean, you can't see what's going on. You don't have the convenient down markers to show, where the first down line is. I mean, there's confusion whenever there's penalties called. It's not like watching the game on TV where everything's simple and accessible and you've got replays and things of that nature. Baseball, it doesn't really matter. I mean, you could sit at the upper decks of Comerica and you could still generally see what's going on. There's no, you can't see the running back because you don't have a good view. I mean, everything's like an aerial view in baseball, and even if you can't see the sweat on the player's brow, if you will, you can still keep tabs on the action and drink a beer and have a nacho and not have to worry about it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. I wasn't talking about ticket sales because I understand why more people would want to go to a Tigers game than a Lions game. I'd rather go to a Tigers game. Probably better food.
Well, I think that's why the ticket sales are better.
Yeah. But I was just talking about in general. The discussion was about why do people get more excited traditionally for the Tigers than they do for the Lions opening. And I think that's, the summer's ending, the summer's starting, and I think you have the Lions. A lot of times with the Tigers, you feel like, well, maybe they'll have a good season, maybe they'll pull it out.
I think a lot of people say that about the Lions too, but
yeah, but I think we've been proven a lot more often that the Lions aren't going to be that team.
Besides the Tigers World Series run a couple years ago,
But they've
really,
been pretty
they've been
good.
horrible too.
They've been at least competitive. You had a sense that maybe there's been several points throughout Tiger seasons where you're like, well, they're leading the division at the All-Star break.
Yeah, in the last
but that's
couple years.
never happened with Lions. Somebody's ever in the '90s when Barry Sanders was there, but nobody.
2007, the Lions were 6-2 going into their bye week. There's a lot of excitement around here.
Yeah, there was a lot of excitement about that. I agree, but that
So,
doesn't
I mean,
happen very often.
No, it doesn't. But then again, the Tigers went through like 15 years of futility before that World Series run, including the second worst season of all time.
But I don't think people were as excited for opening day at that point. I think they're more excited about the Tigers now.
I think it always sells out though, opening day. And yet the Lions, I mean, we're still sitting here 50 minutes before the deadline, and I haven't heard it sold out yet. There's another thing we wanted to talk about. If you want to get into any of this football discussion, you know the number. It's 208-1854. A couple nights ago, Derek Jeter had an issue where a pitch was thrown at him kind of on the inside part of the plate, and he kind of spun out of the way and put the butt of the bat out, and the ball hit the bat, which would be a foul ball by MLB rules. But Derek Jeter jumped up like it hit him in the wrist and made a big theatrics and shaking his hand, and the trainer came out of the dugout, and he got himself the call and went to first base as if he were hit by the pitch. But of course, replay shows that he was not hit by the pitch and that he was just essentially trying to earn the call. And that brings up the issue of gamesmanship and sportsmanship in sports. What is more important, I guess? Would you want your teammate or a player for your team doing what Derek Jeter did the other night just to get on base?
Yeah, I would. I think the problem is that he wasn't thinking about when he was up there about, I wonder if the cameras are going to slow this down. I think it's something that you don't really think about. If the cameras probably didn't slow down the play, if you just watched at full speed or you were at the game, you would probably think like, yeah, maybe he was hit. But I don't mind doing whatever you can. It wasn't cheating. It was just
Well, he
exaggerated.
admitted it after the game. He said, "Yeah, I didn't get hit by the pitch. I just
Yeah.
need to get on base."
Yeah.
It's a guy that's batting like 260 this season, and the Yankees are in the middle of a pennant race with the Rays, and they need all the wins they can get.
Yeah.
He eventually scored after they hit a 2-run home run, which gave New York the lead. They lost the game to Tampa Bay the other night, but he did what he did to get on base. I don't hate it. I mean, you see that in all sports. You see,
Well, I did it when I played basketball. I'd pull on
you
their
still
jerseys.
do it when you play
Yeah.
basketball.
Yeah.
I mean, you take a flop here and there. You yell out when you're going up to the bucket as if you were hit. I mean, in hockey, you grab your face if a stick hits your helmet. I mean, I guess you see it in all sports. You're trying to earn the extra call and abuse the officiating system because, I mean, to be honest, it's really just one set of eyes on any given play. And you only got to fool the guy next to you. No matter what the replay says. I guess a lot of the sports pundits yesterday were saying that if it was Alex Rodriguez that did this, it'd be an entirely separate issue. I mean, what do you have to say about that?
Probably. Because he's looked at as like a whiner and a complainer, and he's looked at as a scumbag, and Derek Jeter's looked at as like, the ultimate, Yankee. Like, he cares about his team. Because I think if A-Rod did it would be more like a selfish thing. Like he just, wanted to. He was just being a baby. But when Derek Jeter does it, the talk is like, oh, he was doing it for his team because he's seen as the ultimate team player, the ultimate Yankee. And A-Rod's not seen as that. A-Rod's seen as selfish and cares about just him and stuff like that. So.
Speaking of selfish and only caring about just him, we can finally put a lid on the Reggie Bush Heisman debacle. Reggie Bush yesterday announced that he would be returning his Heisman Trophy to the Druid-cloaked Heisman Trophy Committee, saying that it is in no way an admission of guilt for the recruiting violations proposed at USC in 2005, but yet he'd be returning the trophy anyway amid allegations that there were some sort of unfair practices going on here. The committee said last week that they weren't going to revoke the Heisman Trophy, but in a way they were sort of inferring that you should probably just give it back. So it's the first time in the 75-year history of the Heisman Trophy that a player has forfeited the trophy after winning it. Are you happy that this debacle's over? Can we just move on now?
Well, I didn't really care all that much in the first place, but I think it is an admission of guilt that looks that way. Obviously, he's going to say that, but obviously there was something funny going on. And I guess the talk now has been with Vince Young's comments about how he went from, I wouldn't really want the Heisman to, yeah I definitely want it now.
Yeah, Vince Young said last week at some point that if Reggie Bush were to forfeit the Heisman, he would want it. Like, I'll take it. Yeah. He finished second in the Heisman voting that year, for those of you who don't know.
Yeah. I'm glad it's over, I guess, because I'm tired of hearing about it because I just really don't care because it's something that really doesn't affect anybody anymore. It's interesting. It's an interesting story to talk about. I would be more interested to hear if I knew that maybe Vince Young was going to get it. I think that would make it more of a relevant story. But just the fact that it's going to be vacated, it's just like, who cares?
I'm surprised that the committee even considered giving the trophy back to Vince Young. And they did. I mean, they said the other day that they'd considered having a revote, but they said that it's been too far. They've been in the pros for too long.
Yeah.
It's not worth a revote. Does that mean that if this was like last year's Heisman Trophy, like let's say Mark Ingram was accused of recruiting violations, that they would revote and give Tim Tebow another Heisman? Or
that's what they made it sound like.
That's an interesting concept. That's a good case study in sports. This brings up a question that it's kind of funny to think about. You think about the USC Trojans team in 2005 that finished second in the national championship game to Vince Young's Texas team. Who would you rather be right now, Reggie Bush or Matt Leinart, the quarterback of that USC championship team or runner-up championship team?
Reggie Bush. He was with the Saints and he won a Super Bowl. Matt Leinart will never do that. So
he did win a Super Bowl, but you just pretty much embarrassed yourself nationally, and you're not getting any carries for the New Orleans Saints. You're probably not going to finish the season with New Orleans. You did get to screw Kim Kardashian, so that's one thing. Matt Leinart.
Well, you got the Heisman for a few years without people knowing. So
yeah, now you got to give it back. And of course, Matt Leinart just lost his starting job in Arizona and was traded.
But really, nobody's gonna be talking about this Reggie Bush story next week. So he got all the media attention when he won the Heisman. Like, that was the talk, and that was a big thing then. I would rather just have that. I'd rather be Reggie Bush. And Matt Leinart's just been so pitiful and bad, and he looks like a whiny baby half the time when he's complaining about things. Like nobody thinks he was good enough to start in Arizona.
He lost his starting job to
The Derek
Derek
Anderson. But Derek Anderson looked like a god compared to Matt. If you watch those preseason
know.
games with Matt Leinart, it was bad.
I just have hope for Matt Leinart for some reason. Like I see him as this Aaron Rodgers sort of figure, where Aaron Rodgers, when he was behind Brett Favre in Green Bay, had like every time he had a chance to play, he was just atrocious. And yet they stuck with him, and everyone seemed to think like, what the hell are they doing? When Brett Favre retires, we're screwed. And then Aaron Rodgers comes out of the woodwork, and now I'd say he's a top 3 or top 4 NFL quarterback.
But they seem
right
to see something in Aaron Rodgers that Packers did. Obviously, the Cardinals did not see anything in Leinart.
Yeah, that's true. Another thing I wanted to talk about, the NHL preseason, Mike, is days away. Do you realize that?
No.
The longest season in professional sports is with the NHL. The preseason starts next Tuesday, so like 3 days, 4 days away from hockey.
Do they play in like Traverse City or something? Like, don't they play games in like obscure
No, that's
places?
training camp.
Oh, okay. I thought they did some like maybe I thought they did. Didn't they play like Van Andel one year or something in a preseason game?
I don't know about that. I think their training camp is in Traverse City.
I thought they did something at Van Andel.
They do some screwy stuff in the preseason. There's some split squad games for some teams that, like for example, on the opening night, Vancouver at Calgary and Calgary at Vancouver, they'll be playing split squad games at 9 and 10 o'clock respectively. Chicago's playing Tampa Bay and Winnipeg on Wednesday, which is really weird. But yeah, so the NHL preseason starts next Tuesday. The Red Wings open up their preseason schedule Wednesday in Pittsburgh at 7 o'clock. I found tickets the other day for Red Wings preseason games for $10 a piece. I bought